Hi Parker Panthers, this is Mrs. Warren again. Well, as I've already mentioned in Class Dojo and in Schoology, we had a tie last week for the books that you chose to be read next after guess. So one of them was All the Lovely Bad Ones, and the other one was Deep Dark Rising. Both of these are by Mary Downing Hahn, and both of these won for next book. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read All the Lovely Bad Ones chapter 1 first, okay, in one video shot, and then when I'm done with that, I'll do another one, a second one, to do Deep, Dark, and Dangerous. And that way everybody gets taken care of that voted. Okay, so enjoy, sit back, and here we go. I do not know anything about All the Lovely Bad Ones. I've never read it. I haven't heard about it. I mean, I know it's a popular one. So what I'm going to do, since I don't know anything, I'm going to read the back of the book, which often gives me either a little excerpt or a little summary about what the book's going to be like. Of course, I can preview and see that by the title, All the Lovely Bad Ones, lovely and bad are kind of opposites. So I'm not sure who's lovely and bad at the same time. We'll have to see. This definitely kind of looks like a ghost of an old lady. She's kind of creepy. So let me read the back. Travis and his sister Corey can't resist a good trick. When they learn that their grandmother's quiet Vermont inn, Vermont is a state, by the way, it's up in the Northeast, where they're spending the summer, has a history of ghost sightings, they decide to do a little haunting of their own. Okay, so it seems like they're gonna try to fool somebody by pretending to be haunting the place. But their supernatural pranks awaken something dangerous, something that should have stayed asleep. Maybe it's the ghost, I don't know. Only Travis and Corey can lay to rest the spiteful spirits they've stirred. Oh, I like that alliteration. Spiteful spirits they stirred. This means discovering the secret of Fox Hill and the horrors visited on its inhabitants years before. So it seems like it's going to be pretty good. And then what they'll have a lot of times is an author of the same genre. So like this is horror. So some other horror authors will often write what they think about the book. So this one says that readers will a fast-paced ghost story that readers will relish, shivering all the while. I hope so, because I like my ghost stories to be scary. And then the next one says accessible prose, shivery details, creative touches combined to make this a truly satisfying ghost story that would transform with great eerie effectiveness into a chapter read aloud by flashlight. Well, I guess I could try to wait until dark and come out with a flashlight, but I'm kind of afraid of the tree roaches that come around. I mean, we've got some big lizards that eat them, but when they come out is really when it's night. So I don't know, maybe if I get brave enough, one night I'll try to see if we can make that work. But right now it's daytime, so we're gonna go for it. All right. Okay. Oh wow, and she's written a lot of books. These are all books by her. So if you ever get the chance to, I know libraries are closed right now, schools closed and everything. If you ever get the chance, you should check out some of the other titles that she's done. You might even be able to get them on like, you know, like technology-wise, like an e-reader or something. I like real books, so that's not for me. All right, let me stop talking and get on with it. Chapter 1. Grandmother met us at the Burlington airport, a big smile on her face and her arms open for a hug. With a squeal of delight, my sister rushed toward her, but I held back. Public displays of affection were okay for girls, I guessed, but not for guys. After all, I'd be 13 soon, way too old for that kind of silly stuff. After giving Corey a big hug, Grandmother turned to me. Just look at you, Travis. You've shot up since Christmas. How tall are you? I shrugged. 5'6", maybe 5'7". Not all that tall. There's a guy in my class who's already 6 feet. I'm almost as tall as Travis, Corey put in, never one to be left out. And I'm a whole year younger. While Corey chattered about the plane ride from New York, Grandmother led us to the baggage claim. We grabbed our suitcases and headed for the parking lot. The late afternoon air was cool and the sky was blue, a change from the heat and humidity that we'd left in the city. Shh, now my cat's carrying on. Welcome to Vermont. Grandmother opened the door of a shiny red pickup truck. Toss your luggage in the back and climb aboard. Corey jumped in beside Grandmother and I squeezed in by the door. So, do you think you'll be able to stand being away from your parents the whole summer? Grandmother asked. My sister and I looked at each other and grinned. We'll miss them a little, Corey said, but we're used to summers away from home. Grandmother smiled. I'm glad you chose the inn instead of camp. So an inn, it's kind of like a hotel, but usually it's a little bit smaller. It kind of seems almost more like a house than like, let's say, the Best Western or Hotel 6 or something like that. Corey and I didn't look at each other for fear we'd laugh and give ourselves away. We hadn't had a choice, actually. Camp Willow Tree had made it very clear that neither Corey nor I was welcome to return. It seemed we failed to get into the true spirit of camp. We started food fights, played hooky from evening campfire, made up rude words to the camp song, overturned a canoe on purpose, and let the air out of the counselor's bike tires the day we were supposed to ride 20 miles up a mountain in the pouring rain. Was it our fault the camp staff had no sense of humor? Sounds like they're kind of bad, which usually makes this kind of fun. The truth of it was, Corey and I tended to get in trouble wherever we went. Bad ones. That's what we were. Well, not really bad. We prefer to think of ourselves as pranksters. But like the camp staff, adults, including Mom and Dad, didn't find our antics as funny as we did. So they thought they were funny, but their parents and everybody else didn't. Our parents had made us promise to behave ourselves at the inn. One bad report from Grandmother and we'd spend the rest of our vacation taking pre-algebra in summer school. A fate even worse than camp craft projects involving popsicle sticks and feathers. Just before the turnoff for Middlebury, we left Route 7 and took a winding road that rolled over hills, past farms and fields, red barns, and sturdy farmhouses. Herds of black and white cows raised their heads to watch us go by. Beyond them, the mountains rose greenish blue against the sky. Here we are. Grandma pointed to a neatly painted sign, the Inn at Fox Hill, next right. Under the words was a picture of a smiling fox. A vacancy sign hung below. Grandmother swung into a long, straight driveway shaded by tall trees. The late afternoon sun touched everything with gold. The lawn, the flower beds, and wooden rocking chairs on the front porch. Behind the inn, clouds cast their shadows on the green mountains. Grandmother parked the truck and Corey and I jumped out. I grabbed for my suitcase, but Grandmother said, "Leave your luggage for now. Henry can bring it in later." Martha's promised to have a pitcher of ice-cold lemonade, fresh squeezed, and a plate full of chocolate chip cookies still warm from the oven. Martha is going to bring them drinks, and somebody named Henry is going to bring it. Kind of sounds like Grandma might have some money, and maybe these are people that worked for her. I guess it was a pretty good business running an inn. I guess maybe a lot of people went there. We followed Grandmother down a stone path bordered with dense white flowers to a brick patio shaded by a huge wisteria climbing over a trellis. Nearby, a fountain splashed into a pool, and I glimpsed flashes of red fish swimming in its depths. Flowers bloomed everywhere and bees hummed. Birds called back and forth in the trees. As we settled ourselves around a table, a woman strode toward us carrying a tray. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly into a knot, and her mouth seemed to have settled into a permanent frown. Without so much as a smile, She set the tray down and stepped back. Thank you, Martha. It looks lovely. Gesturing to Corey and me, Grandmother introduced us to the woman. Pleased to meet you. Still no smile, just a quick dip of the head. Mrs. Brewster is our cook, Grandma told us. People come to the inn year after year just to eat her famous blueberry pie. Another dip of the head, and Mrs. Brewster left us to enjoy the lemonade and cookies. Martha's a little standoffish, Grandma admitted, but she and her husband more or less came with the inn, and she's truly magnificent in the kitchen. Okay, so Martha and Henry are husband and wife. All right. Corey jabbed my ankle with the toe of her shoe and whispered, "She looks like an old grump to me." Grandmother leaned across the table to brush a strand of hair out of Corey's eyes. "You'll change your mind when you eat your first meal here." Corey helped herself to a cookie. While she chewed, she looked around. "Is that a swimming pool?" Grandmother nodded. "You can use it anytime you like, as long as someone's with you. I don't have a lifeguard." She pointed past the pool to the wide grassy lawn, dotted with old-fashioned Adirondack chairs turned to face the mountains. "If you like tennis, the court's over there. I have bicycles for guests. The state park's just down the road and has a great network of biking and hiking trails." Grandmother ate a cookie. "If it rains," she went on, "there's a library, computer, TV, DVD player, at least a dozen old-fashioned board games. Hopefully you'll find plenty to do." Corey and I leaned back in our chairs and drank our lemonade, just as fresh and cold as Grandmother had promised. It looked as if it were going to be a good summer. No schedules, no organized activities, no blowing whistles at us, no boring crafts. For once, we were to do whatever we wanted to do, including nothing. Nothing at all. I don't know, I think I might be kind of bored doing nothing at all. Corey studied the inn. "Do you have many guests?" "There are 6 rooms," Grandmother said. 4 on the 2nd floor and 2 on the 3rd. We can house 12 guests, but tonight we only have 2. A couple of young men. Corey looked around. "Where are they?" "They've gone out bicycling, but they'll be back soon for dinner." "You must have more people than that," Corey said. Grandmother sighed. "That's what I thought when I bought the place, but the inn's kind of remote. Tourists like to be closer to Burlington or Middlebury, Stowe or Woodstock." She shifted in her chair as if she were about to get up, but then changed her mind. "Actually, the inn's location is only part of the problem," she added slowly. I wonder what the other part of the problem is. Corey and I sat up straighter, as if we both sensed something exciting. For a moment, Grandmother stared at the inn, her gaze drifting from one window to the next, as if she were admiring the flower boxes. "I wouldn't bother telling you," she said, at last, "but you're sure to hear guests talking about it. Fox Hill is mentioned in Haunted Inns of Vermont." I knew that was going to be it. Corey and I leaned closer, our eyes wide. A little shiver raced up and down my spine. A whole summer in a haunted inn? What could be more exciting than that? "Ooh," Corey murmured. "I've always wanted to see a ghost." "Don't be stupid," I told her. "You can't even watch a horror movie without having nightmares." "Huh?" Corey said. "Just last week I watched one of the Scream movies and I didn't even close my eyes or cover my ears." "Don't worry," Grandmother patted Corey's hand. "No one has seen a ghost since the Cornells sold the inn to me." "Where do you think they went?" Corey asked. "To North Carolina, I think," Grandmother said. "They wanted to open an inn at the beach." "No, not the Cornells," I said. "The ghost. Where did the ghost go?" Grandmother shrugged. "In my opinion, they never were really here in the first place." "You don't believe in ghosts?" Corey looked surprised. "Of course not," Grandmother laughed. "But sometimes I find myself wishing they'd come back. Business might improve." "What do you mean?" I asked. You'd be surprised how many people come here because of that stupid book, grandmother said. Then they leave in a huff because they didn't see a ghost. Some even want their money back. Do you have the book? I asked. Of course. Grandmother got up and led us into the inn, through the kitchen and down a hall to a large room in the front of the house. The library, she said. Tall windows. So I know you're thinking, what? A library in a house? Sometimes, especially in the older days, people that have a lot of money, they buy a lot of books and then they turn one room, or they have one room as a library where they can go to read their own books. So I guess kind of like the library I have in my classroom, but even more. Okay, so that's what they mean when they say she has a library. Let's see. Tall windows let in long bars of afternoon light. Several pairs of soft leather armchairs flanked the windows. A matching sofa stood near the door. In front of it was a low table covered with magazines. Books crammed the shelves built into the walls. Grandmother picked up a thick, well-read paperback and handed it to me. Page 103, she said. I sat down on the sofa and Corey perched beside me. I opened the book to page 103. The inn at Fox Hill was built in the late 1700s. Originally a private home, it has changed hands many times. Although I checked old records, the inn's history is sketchy at best. Apparently, it served several purposes, among them a boarding house, a tuberculosis sanitarium, a private school. In 1940, the place was abandoned. For 15 years, it stood vacant. Weather, neglect, and vandals took their toll. Smothered in ivy and surrounded by weeds, the mansion was soon reduced to a shell of its former self. To the passerby, it was the very image of a haunted house. In 1955, Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Cornell, young vacationers from Boston, saw the building and recognized its potential. They spent more than 10 years restoring the house and grounds. In 1967, the inn at Fox Hill opened for business. Soon the Cornells began receiving complaints from the guests. A woman in a long white dress roamed the grounds at night, moaning so loudly she woke them up. Others were kept awake by noisy children playing in the halls. Many reported hearing footsteps on the stairs, banging doors, barking dogs, sobs, which is like crying, and laughter. Lights and radios came on in the middle of the night. Water gushed from faucets. Toilets flushed continually. The power went off for no reason and came back on again for no reason. Rather amusingly, one woman was especially indignant about an impudent child who called her fatso, but who ran away before she got a good look at him. More seriously, several guests complained of theft. Watches, rings, jewelry, and the like disappeared from drawers and bedside tables. Mr. and Mrs. Cornell were as mystified as their guest. They investigated the plumbing and the wiring. They kept doors locked at night. They even hired a night watchman. Nothing helped. The incidents continued. Soon, psychics descended on Fox Hill, followed by ghost hunters with special cameras and recorders. The experts agreed. Ghosts roam the halls of the inn. As we all know, some people are sensitive to the presence of ghosts. Others are not. If you want to test yourself, spend a night or two at the inn at Fox Hill. I did, and I was not disappointed. When I woke, the cheap ring I'd left deliberately on the bedside table was gone. And remember, even if you don't see a ghost, you'll enjoy the Cornells' hospitality, the inn's charm, the fresh Vermont air, the gorgeous scenery, and the meals prepared by the cook in residence, the excellent Mrs. Martha Brewster, a rare marvel. I closed the book and stared at grandmother. Are you sure? I began, but she cut me off with a wave of her hand. It's absolute nonsense. She shook her head disdainfully and returned the book to the shelf. 5:30, she said. Time for dinner. As Corey and I followed grandmother out of the library, we glanced at each other. Without saying a word, I knew my sister was thinking exactly what I was thinking. rappings and tappings, footsteps, doors opening and shutting. What we could do that and more. Bringing back Ghosts to Fox Hill would be like playing haunted house all summer long. So if you had the opportunity to pretend to be a ghost, would you? I don't know. I know that when you guys were in 4th grade, and I want to say it was my homeroom class that Miss Melendez's class, they and I tried to trick my homeroom by writing the name Helen all over the Promethean board. And then the way we did it to where you could only see it if we turned off the Promethean board. So I remember that I kicked the plug off, and then everybody could see it in my homeroom. And then some kids were like, oh my gosh, look at that, Miss Warren. And some kids were like, nah, I think she did it. But anyway, it was fun trying it anyway. So, would you be the type of person that would want to trick others by making them think that there is a ghost in the house? I don't know. Sounds like it could be fun. So that was the end of the first chapter, and I'm going to close out this video so I can start up my next video with Deep, Dark, and Dangerous.